before the Roman invasion of Britain. The Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot, what they wanted to do was to obliterate and physically destroy anything which they saw as foreign. They wanted to wipe the slate clean and start all over again. The last surviving Romans gathered together in the Temple of Claudius. They held out for 2 days. Eventually, they were overwhelmed as well, and they were put to the sword. And Roman Colchester, as a functioning entity, had simply ceased to exist.
Having slaughtered Colchester's 20,000, Boudica's army swept across the country, destroying everything in its path. Farmers were faced with a stark choice: either join the rebellion or die. Boudica had unleashed an uncontrollable hatred against all things Roman.
When Suetonius heard of the revolt, he left his troops chasing Druids in Wales and raced back east, covering 180 miles in only 4 days. Reinforcements were sent to save Colchester, but too late. The would-be saviors walked straight into Boudica's trap. At least 1,500 Romans died.
You come in at the sides on this line of marching men and wipe them out. It was brilliant, and a brilliant morale booster for us and a brilliant morale destroyer for the Romans. Of 4 legions, they now have 3.
Boudica was just beginning her reign of terror. Now her enraged hordes were heading for that well-known centre of foreigners, London. Suetonius arrived in London just ahead of Boudica. As he descended down into the Thames Valley, he couldn't know that the person who'd unleashed this terror was a woman. The idea of a woman warrior was completely against the Roman mentality. But Suetonius had a more immediate dilemma. Should he stay and protect London, or should he flee and live to fight another day?
The heady attraction of blood, loot, and revenge swelled Boudica's horde to nearly 100,000. Without his troops, Suetonius took what Romans he could and abandoned the city to its fate.
Because he was a brilliant general, he decided to sacrifice London, which can't have been an easy decision because it was indefensible, and because he couldn't get his men down there in time and he wasn't about to fight a battle he was going to lose.
Boudica's army leveled London and massacred its 10,000 inhabitants, Romans and Britons alike. In a strange twist of fate, Roman officials were forced to try out their own instrument of punishment, the crucifix. Both Boudica and Suetonius must have believed that they were fighting for a better world. Strange, then, that dreams of utopia so often end in murder.
We know that the only people who stayed behind were the elderly, the infirm, people who were attached to the place, but of course they were put to the sword, they were slaughtered.
The attack enveloped London in a firestorm of 1,000 degrees centigrade. 13 feet below today's London lies a layer of scorched earth, the enduring legacy of the Holocaust, known to archaeologists as the Boudica destruction layer.
After burning down many buildings in London and killing many of the people there, Boudica and her army then went on to St. Albans. And the reason why they chose St. Albans is because the Cativalorni tribe who lived in that part of the country had become quite pro-Roman. St. Albans itself, or Verulamium, had been made a municipium, which was sort of like a secondary town, one down from a colonia, which was the status of the colony at Colchester. And so, obviously, because these people had become pro-Roman, this was enough to make Boudica and her followers extremely angry, and it was a good reason for choosing St. Albans for destruction.
Greek historian Cassius Dio, writing 150 years later, saw Boudica as a monstrous figure. A bloodthirsty terrorist responsible for the deaths of up to 70,000. And he may have been right.
She was an ethnic cleanser. She did terrible, terrible things. Thousands of people died. She was a freedom fighter, though. It wasn't her fault that she found herself confronted by an enemy, the greatness of which she could only dimly comprehend.
You go in and you go in as hard as you possibly can, and you don't stop until one or other side has won, because you're fighting to save your culture. This is your last chance.
After the sacking of St. Albans, Suetonius knew that if he didn't stop the revolt soon, not a Roman would be left alive in Britain. Most historians believe he assembled his troops near Mansetta in the Midlands to prepare for the final showdown.
Suetonius was no fool. He chose his terrain carefully, placed his men at the narrow end of a valley. The rear would be protected by the woods. The Britons would be forced to fight on Roman terms and to attack uphill in a pitched battle. Why would Boudica choose to do this when she'd had so much success with guerrilla tactics?
He knew what he was doing, Suetonius Paulinus. We couldn't come in at the sides, we couldn't come in from the back. But it looks as if he's trapped himself in a place from which there is no retreat.
Suetonius must have been under serious pressure. After 3 defeats, the Emperor Nero would be demanding a victory. The numbers involved in the battle were enormous. There were somewhere between 100 and 200,000 Britons. They were so confident of destroying the 11,000 Romans that they brought their families to see the fun. Sitting in wagons at the back, the spectators blocked any escape from the field of battle.
Part of the reason you took your families is that I think it's very possible both parents were fighting. You bring the kids along, who's going to stay behind and look after them? So it was a family war. Everybody was out there fighting.
There was the Roman governor Suetonius, his back literally against the wall. With the Romans' only option, death, they had no chance but to fight to the last man. 2 legions, each of about 5,000 men, ready to clash head-on with the British hordes. And here was Boudica, a woman driven by revenge and fury, set to avenge her humiliation, her daughter's violation, and her people's threatened annihilation.
Ancient historians say both leaders exhorted their troops before the battle.
Ut spernerent sonoris, barbarorum et inanes minas.
This is not the first time the Britons have been led into battle by a woman. But now I do not come to boast the pride of a long line of ancestry, nor even to recover my kingdom and the plundered wealth of my family, but for all our liberty!
Ut spernerent sonoris. Despise the savage uproar, the yells and shouts of undisciplined barbarians. In that mixed multitude, the women outnumber the men. They are not soldiers who come to offer battle. They are bastards, runaways, the refuse of your swords.
The vindictive gods are at hand! Look! How the Romans, even now, shrink back in terror!
In all engagements, it is the valor of a few that turns the fortune of the day. Conquer, and victory gives you everything.